just like, oh my gosh, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Hello everyone. Today what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be showing you some curious decks. So Tom Benjamin recently made a video called Curious Curios from my Tarot Divination, something along those lines. And I've had to take a really long break from YouTube for a while, and it's because I've gotten some bad news, as well as some other small factors. I'm not going to apologize, but I've been seeing all these videos that I want to add to. Let me go back from this 1% perspective. I've been seeing all these decks and all these videos that I really want to show off, and I really want to make videos too. And it just wasn't the right time. You know, I had to stop making videos for a while, but I'm going to get into it. And I know I said I got bad news. I'm going to share it in another video, not this one, because I just want to show off some fun Curious Curio decks. And I know that this was a video that it was a tag that had went viral earlier. The other people were sharing their weird, kooky, weird Curious decks, and I just didn't want to participate in that one. So about watching the one Tom Benjamin did was really fun and interesting. And yeah, so half of these decks, a little bit more than half, appear to be tarot. The rest are oracle and playing cards. And without a doubt, let's go ahead and get out. So this deck, blank, came with no cover on the box. Very interesting. It is mythological abstraction tarot. So I believe in the title, it's described itself as if Picasso had flipped through a Greek history textbook, and there is nudity. Oh, you can see that well. But it is this cube-esque abstract tarot deck that has the tarot card on top, as well as the entity, the name of the entity of the deity at the bottom. And I think, love that one. I think if you work with Greek archetypes, Greek deities, Greek energies, I think this is a really good tool if you really want to step out of just the main 12 Olympians, right? I'm actively, if I wasn't making so many decks, if you know, if I wasn't busy making so many decks, I would have this on the next to be made list. But I'm actually in the market and looking for decks that show off energies and entities from the entire Greek pantheon. And then I want to do the same for the Egyptian pantheon, and then the same for the Norse pantheon. And actually, I did recently get one for the Egyptian one. I wasn't going to show it originally, but I'm going to show it in this one. But I like it. I think something about seeing artwork that you enjoy but isn't realism as an artist really gives you permission. Oh, and I got a gay lovers card, 10 out of 10. It really gives you permission to make art and not force yourself to be so realistic. I mean, there's sometimes where I make art and I go, oh, this sucks. This does not look good. And then I stop and I think, does the artwork actually not work? Or is it just not photorealism? I like the shading on that one. And often, the work I made, it typically in my art does have purpose when I do it. It's I'm making this artwork for this reason, and it does what it's intended to do. It's just I forget sometimes that sometimes, the artwork that you like to make isn't the artwork that you like to see. It's kind of how when you look at yourself, you're oh, you look in the mirror and you're well, I'm just not my own type. But you can still love your body and who you are and not have it be where it's like, oh, this is my type. My body needs to be my type. I mean, Huncules. But that is the mythological abstraction tarot. I will say, on top of not having a box, which, you know, it's fine. It's fine. I think for many people, making 78 works of art is hard enough, but making the box is like an added layer. But it doesn't come with like a guidebook that, like a a little white book. It doesn't come with that. It does come with a guidebook that you can print yourself. Let's see. So it's a tarot. Let's do another tarot. This one is, I found a seller on Etsy and their website, and they sell rare decks as well as reproductions. And what this is, it's a majors only tarot deck. And when I was doing research on the Marseille deck, I bought this a long time ago. It's a little anthropomorphic Marseille deck of different animals. And it's from a magazine. I don't know what magazine. Love that. There's something about the timelessly and fantasy and the art style that this does that I really enjoy it. I think I've done used this deck for 1, maybe 2 readings. And it has the name, I think, of the artist down there. If it doesn't load, I'll just put it in post. In a business suit in the middle of the Renaissance. But something about anthropomorphized animals into human bodies, like with the fantastical menagerie tarot, sometimes you get this sense of like weirdness, right? Where the animal and the way it's being positioned within the body of the human, it doesn't make sense. And I think I really wish this was a full deck. I wish this was a full deck, not with minors. But it makes sense. The animal makes sense for the card meeting, and the way its body's positioned, it makes sense. What was that deck? The next one is, I really love this. I want to make a video called something along the lines of, you are an artist, make a pack of playing cards. I feel like if you are an artist, there's no reason why you are not making a pack of playing cards if you have enough works of art already. This is the Portable Fortitude, 54 talismans for home and abroad. So, pretty sure this was made actually locally to where I was. It doesn't come edged in black, but I did edge my copy in black. And then, let's see. Okay. So, the kings and queens are actually people, and I did not personally want to use this deck with them in it. And that's because you're going to see why. The artwork, I just used it for something different. I could use this deck for playing card divination, but it's just not something that I specifically use this deck for. And this is the artist's website. But how fab this is. So each card has an illustration, and it has a protection. So this is protection from cynicism. This is a Joker. Protection from comfortable delusions. Protection from the USA. Protection from what remains undone. Protection from being led astray. And I really do use protection from crippling despair. This as a sort of oracle deck, playing card deck hybrid, where I remove the kings and the queens, and instead I just use it Very rarely, honestly. Protection from your mind turning against your body. I'm just gonna get into it. I personally feel like if you are an artist, making a pack of playing cards is such a great idea for you as like the creator. It gives a sort of miniature look at a portfolio of who you are as an artist. People collect not only your artwork, but they also collect playing cards. Especially if you're like a witchy person, pagan, whatever you want to say it. People use playing card divination on top of that. And I think this approach of here are the cards, here's the main sample of art, I feel like it's something that it needs to be done more. I believe in artists. I believe in our ability to create. And I personally believe that it's your job to sell your art. It's your job to sell your art, to share your art, to get your art out there. Now, is it easy? No. Some artists, they struggle with creating the ideas for art. Some people struggle with sharing the art. That's me. I'm just someone who makes art and then I keep it to myself. And then some people, they don't know how to go the step beyond to selling it. But I think all three are important. Ooh, this is a little scary. A little scurry. I need to use this one. Protection from Puritans. Protection from the abyss. Honestly, a deck like this seems very interesting in the way of like you just sit down and you list out everything you're upset at. You're like, I'm upset about the one time in college there was this infestation at the frat house. I'm upset when people wake me up in the morning. And then you just make illustrations about what you're upset at. And then you have a very interesting, curious deck. Let's get into the next one. I think it's a bit obvious that I, as a deck and artist, deck creator and collector, I don't love just one type of art. I like all types of art. And this is the Uncertain Oracle by Cedar McLeod. And I think, let me see if I can grab it real quick. My Abstract Heart Oracle deck, I think this is a deck that would go amazing in readings together. Just 2 layers of abstract on abstract. Shifting. Like that. So apparently, the way this was created, their deck, not mine, is that they had done, it says here, nope. They had done prompts for a period of time, and then they had asked their community, which of these prompts do you think would be best on a pack of cards? And these were the ones that were chosen. What I like about this is that I think there's a typicality of prompts that are used within Oracle and Tarot decks. And I think that this pulls out of it, I think that this recognizes the box that we've created through conforming of what an Oracle deck should work as and what it should function as and what it should say. And it plays within the box and then it steps out of it. I also think that, I should put mine away because this isn't about my deck, is it? Something about the prompts themselves, sometimes I don't see it, right? And it's nice to sit with it and say, why is this visitation? Why is this visitation? I don't get it. Let's see, treasure. reach, self-compassion, discomfort, trust, earth, music, sweet, second sight, solstice, sacred anger. I think this was one of the cards where I saw it and I was like, yeah, we're getting this deck. Because I don't like decks that conform to different ideals of like nationalism, white supremacy, all that. And I think the idea that you need to be quiet and anger is a bad emotion, you shouldn't express anger at anything. And that's something that I actively try to work away from. On top of, I think it's obvious at this point, on top of decks that proclaim to be in support of women and feminism, but they actually are in support of skinny, white, attractive, objectifiable bodies. You know, we're here for women as they come. Grief. Love this. Small magic. And also, hot take, you know, when I had a lot of money and I was buying these decks, it was like, okay, time to put my money where my mouth is, you know? The creator is trans and I support trans people. And let's see, slow. And I do think at some point, you know, you could say, here's a list of decks that you can buy from Amazon or from eBay, not eBay, sorry, Amazon or Walmart, whatever. If you just can't afford to pay that starving artist. And I'm kind of like, no, you know, if you are a person who proclaims that you support, you know, the goodness of life and empathy, integrity, if you have integrity and that your words actually mean anything, you do have to deal with some sort of difficulty. Maybe you don't get all the decks that you want when you want them. Release. Oh, I think this is such a beautiful card. So I know that Cedar has made other decks. I have their tarot, their Numinous tarot, but not the other Oracle deck. I think it's like the Thread That Binds Oracle deck. I don't have that. But I know they're working on a pantry. I think it's a pantry tarot. They've gone from tarot to Oracle to tarot again. And I respect that. It is, you know, a creative process. On to the next one. This one I've not shared. I want to do a series. I'm so excited. And I've already started one episode, and this is going to be another episode. I want to do a series where I go over rare decks that I've not seen anywhere online, or I've not seen people make videos about online. I want to call it Deck Obscuro. And that's part one. And the part two is I'm working on creating eventually a deck archive so that, you know, the decks that we use, tarot, Oracle, playing card, Lenormand, Sibylla, runes, etc., we use different decks. And I think it's a disservice not to try to create a living document to record the tools that we use, especially since these are paper products, you know? This, you can tell, it's already being destroyed under the weight of its own existence. Because I don't use this deck for reading, you know? But people need to have this information accessible. And I really believe in celebrating artists and celebrating their creations by trying to archive it. And I think that's a whole other video I need to make. But this is the Fantarocco di Franco Anacini. It is a Marseille deck. And if I remember my research correctly, this is the back. This is a tarot deck made to fundraise for a church. And I think it's a church in Italy for old disabled people, but I could be wrong. But I think they're a church or a home. I'm pretty sure it's a church. But I feel like these highly detailed black illustrations. I feel like this is a perfect example of like nudity warning. You can be New Age, pagan, a witch, Jewish, Christian, Muslim. You can have all these different practices, and you can live in peace and harmony with other people, you know? And I think this is also a reminder that if you're trying to make political works and you're trying to make the world a better place, it does start at, you know, where you are and who you are. I am not, you know, I keep waking up and I'm just not a billionaire, and that I wouldn't want to be a billionaire, but it also sucks that I keep waking up and I don't have a lot of money, enough money to fix all the problems. But what I can do is, what a weird freaky card, is I can use the tools of who I am to try to make the world a better place where I am. And I think this is a good example. So those are majors. The minors are all color coded. I don't know why the majors were out of order. I'm hoping, yeah. So the minors are in order. But look at such detailed artwork. And this is what I mean, like, I feel like this deck needs to be remembered. I feel like artwork and our history needs to be remembered. And I think a lot of people might be like uncomfortable with the idea of work being saved for later. And they're like, well, how would you feel? And I do plan on putting my own work on this archive as well. That's exactly how I feel. I like how they have the images. It's not just the same image copy and pasted again and again, but even on top of that, stuff lives in the space of without. And then a mixture of the two. Pretty sure all the knights are on rocking horses. That music's a little bit too loud. 1 second. Sorry about that. I like to play music in the background while I'm making YouTube videos. And then when I upload it, I add even more music. It's just what I personally like. It makes my mind feel a little bit calmer. Normally I play soft rain on like tin roof sounds, but I decided to listen to jungle music this time. Isn't that just trippy? Like, instead of these characters were living in between, it's actually part of the face with the eyes. I don't know if you can tell. I will say the cards, and this is the reason why, on top of this being such a historical and archival deck for me, another reason why I don't use it is because the quality of the paper is plasticky. And if I try to force this high gloss, is it a high gloss? I don't know. This glossy cardstock, or rather the glossy lamination on the cardstock, to shuffle in the way I would want it to, part of it would be destroyed. Look at the intricateness. I think that's the list. I need to make a update video over what I've done for the past quarter, and then I need to make this tarot archive video. There's actually some other people who made videos I want to respond to as well. And then I need to I also have a lot of stuff I need to share. See, that's what I mean, like, being an artist, you struggle in different ways. And I just struggle to share myself. Kind of like, well, you want to hear from me, that's none of your business. And then it turns out it actually is very important that I do share myself in my artwork. It's a Venturocco di Franco Anacini. let's do let's do a fun one. Play With Me Playing Cards by Six Sad Girls. So Six Sad Girls is doing this thing where they're making a tarot deck for each planet in the solar system, or like each element. So they have a Mars powered tarot, a Neptune, a moon powered, a star powered, and I believe they're working on their Neptune powered tarot. So they're very prolific, and they do have their set style, and I do enjoy that style. This does depart from that, and I think it's very interesting. I will say the suits are blades, leaves, diamonds, and hearts, and this deck is as close as I can get to showing you some of my out there playing cards, because I do have some playing cards that are even more adult, let's say that. And at this point, it's like I just have to get a Patreon just to show you, and I don't want to charge you to see artwork. There's that quote. Another reason why I want to make this archive. Culture does not exist only for those who can afford it. I also use this for playing card divination. Rarely though, just because I do have the other decks that, I like. But I think if you are looking for permission to make a playing card deck and also have it exist outside of the traditional format, this deck gave me permission. Oh, maybe I should make a Patreon. I guess my thing is like, I want to show you more artwork. I want to show more of what I'm excited about. But the fact of the matter is like, who am I? I'm serious, I'm silly, I'm spiritual, and I'm sensual, right? And not all of those are marketable. And because they're not marketable, they can't all exist on YouTube or even on like the same platform, if that makes sense. You can make different personas, right? Which is what I've seen some artists do, is they have like their safer work and then their not safer work accounts separate. I just don't believe in fun, quirky box. I just don't believe in compartmentalizing who you are as a person. I don't know why I struggle so much putting that back in. Please, Luffy. I just don't believe in it. I think you should be able to just show who you are. Then again, I'm from, what was it? Back in the day of like 2014, 2012, 2016 internet, where you could do stuff like that. This is the Memento Mori Tarot by Arcstar. I think this is another deck that deserves to be shown off as a fun, that's interesting, curiosity deck. It has this really cool pink background, and you're not even ready. Grab yourself a slice of this. Hot pink. You cannot believe. You just cannot believe. So, the artist definitely has a style. Nothing wrong with that. But this is a very gory tarot deck. I think it was made in 2020. I could be wrong. There's something about this card. Well, many things about this card. Not this card, this deck, that reminds me of different like cultural points that you can tell are influences on the artist. Like somewhere I feel like Sailor Moon, Kill Bill, Junji Ito, they're all kind of interplaying. And I'm trying to remember that girl that Junji Ito wrote about, Tomei. It's giving Tomei. This is also very Lollipop Chainsaw-esque. Not that I think that was an influence, and maybe it could have been. But it's just, I don't know. For me, if you are looking for a reading or something as a friend that is like goth, dark, and grungy, but also hot pink and fun and bubbly, I feel like this is one of the few examples of a deck that like rides the line of in between. Also, this is another reason why I really enjoyed this deck, was that the size is very synonymous with my first tarot deck ever. And I've never seen people on like TarotTube or whatever talk about my first deck ever. So maybe I should make that another deck and Deck Obscuro. Actually, no, I have a better idea. I think, I'm gonna be honest, I feel like this right here is my art table where I make art. I feel like showing this deck anywhere other than like neon lights is almost disrespectful to how it should be shown off. But I think that's just me, because like, if you see my videos, you know that like, it's not just the artwork I really appreciate, but I also appreciate the package overall, which includes like the font that was used and these different small details in the way that the artist chose to exemplate their work. Oh, that was pretty gory. Let's see. I have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more decks to show you, and I think 2 are kind of gory. One's kind of goth, so I'm gonna show a not goth one. This is a reproduction, so this is not a legitimate copy, and if you know, you know on first sight how this is not a genuine copy. But this is a reproduction of the Minnow Tarot. So this is the back. The Minnow Tarot was a tarot deck that I found while doing research on the imagery of the Minotaur. I had felt pulled to the symbol of the Minotaur, and I didn't really like understand why. There's just certain things I felt personally pulled to, and only after the fact later on did I realize like, oh, the Minotaur is a symbol for XYZ things for like certain groups of people, but for other groups of people, the Minotaur represents a different set of correspondences. And I've been working with my own individualized correspondences that just so happen to be similar but not the same as different correspondences that some men have found. When I bought this, it did come with a guidebook, and I gotta admit, it's, well, A, I bought it from the same guy who sold this deck, so, but B, the guidebook was, I think, the original that was just like poorly scanned, and I'm tempted, if I make a video on how to archive a deck, I'm thinking, should I make another video on how you can properly scan your deck? And I guess the concern is if I teach you how to scan your own decks, there is no reason why you theoretically could not pirate a deck, and you could steal it, and then like self-reproduce it and sell it to other people. And I'm a deck creator, but even before I started making my own decks, I was like, that's not really cool, you know? But on the other hand, if I don't show you how to do that, what are you gonna have to, if I make this archive, what are you gonna do? Send me your entire deck collection? I mean, I wouldn't mind showing off some of the individual decks, but at this point, I know how much art is out there, and I know I literally do not have enough time to do that. That would have to be my full-time job. And I do think there is this, like, what can I do as an individual to aid with preservation of history? This is so beautiful. The way the cloth has, like, I think these are stars in it. Also like the artwork and how it's vaguely like, it gives my prejudiced first impression of what would be on a Greek face. I know the artwork on Greek faces are completely different, but it does play to that like cultural first impression. And like I said, it does come with the guidebook. So I don't use this often in my own practice, but it is a resource. And I do have some decks in my collection that are purely, on top of being archival, they're just resources, right? They're just for me to look at whenever I need to reference something. Phantom Pack. I love this deck, and I do use it for Divination. So, first thing you know is I did cut the corners of the book and the cards, and I also edged them both myself. So, soft, soft. I believe Pure Red Velvet recently showed this off, and I think they said that they liked the sharp corners. I did not, but I'm a mixed media artist, so I already had the corner cutter. And if you plan on edging your own decks and cutting off the borders, then you would already want to invest in a corner cutter. But this is just a fun little goth deck. I think what was her name? Catamancy Tarot was also talked about it, but I'm trying to remember another person I can't remember who's also talked about this deck. This is like a very popular deck in the way that, like, I know a lot of people own this deck, but I don't know that a lot of people actively use this deck. It's like synonymously people feel like they need to own this deck for some reason. And I actually have Grimoire Ramble using this image, the bottle. I forgot I had more decks I wanted to show you. Let's see. Ooh, disgusting. I'm gonna go over this one. This is the Maya Maneo Tarot. I went through a period of time where, this was a while ago, I had no money, and then I had a lot of money, and I was like, let's get all of these decks, and then I did. And this is one of the decks I got. There's something about the way this deck treats gold. It's not gold, like, it's not embossed. It's not gold foil. Either hot or cold. It's neither of those. But it is slightly reflective. But I went through a period of time where I was like, I want to buy all these decks. And I want my collection to be gay, I want it to be diverse, and I want it to be artistic. And part of the diverse is like, I want it to be from different artists and different creators from all over the world. And when I say like artistic and gay, what I mean like is sometimes I'll get a deck just because I'm like, the artwork artistically it conveys something to me, or I enjoy the artwork. It can be artistic and diverse. It can be gay and diverse. It can be gay and artistic. It can be, honestly, something that's none of those. I like their approach to wands. I will say, I don't think he's going to watch, but just in case he does, Tom Benjamin has talked about how he doesn't like how some of the minors in some cards are like image copy paste. And the minors do appear to be very similar to that. what I think is interesting is, if I remember correctly, this deck also had 2 jokers. It's crazy because I have the Bonestone and Earthflush Tarot, and I feel the similar way towards that deck, towards this, where I know what theoretically I could buy this deck if something were to happen. And it's not like I'm the worst shuffler in the world, but I feel almost scared to use this deck. It feels like, I think Benabel Wen talked about like Kilmed Tarot. I think I said that name wrong. But they're like, this is the perfect deck to have on a living room or dining room table because it's so beautiful and gorgeous. And I feel that way with this deck myself. Like, this is just so ornately perfected in different ways that I'm like, is my hands worthy to touch such beautiful, amazing artwork? Yeah, the Fool. So we can find it. The interesting double card. World. If you know, you know about your yokai. I think that's a yokai. I could be wrong. 2 full cards. Which, you know, in some readings may be necessary. Let's keep it going. I don't typically like it when people who show off decks just like speed through it. But at some point, my videos are like an hour long, and I enjoy hour long videos. I don't know about you. Let's see. Let's pull the rest out. I'll let that be the last one. Let's do this one. A person during 2020 made this deck. Segments. I probably missaid that. Servant's Oracle deck. It's an over 100 card Oracle deck watercolor of the entire Egyptian pantheon. And I think, you know, I really do need to get the book that comes with it because it is a separate purchase. I'm just gonna put that aside because I'm making a mess. But I just feel like there's so much that you can get out of this. And I'm tempted to guild it myself. See if I can find it. This is a deck I made. I'm going to show it to you later in the future. But this like soft gilding, I'm like, I need to do that for this. Also, I have a rainbow and fun this is. I do believe that Egyptian mythology is a mythology, like the whole pantheon, that it definitely gets forgotten. It definitely doesn't get its time in the sun, its time with fun, its time out and loud. And I think the Greek pantheon, it gets its time being reinvented again and again and again and again. And I'm like, what about the Egyptian pantheon? What about the Norse pantheon? And I'm not talking about another Thor Marvel movie, okay? I'm not talking about that. Sekhmet. Like different interpretations of the same. I will say one thing about this deck is that I 100% believe that you need the guidebook. You need the guidebook. Thoth is in this deck, and Thoth is not spelled Thoth. So if you want to know who you're pulling, I've not gotten the guidebook yet, but even I know I should have gotten the guidebook. It's only like, what, 13, 17 bucks? Like, I don't know. I feel like also this deck is one of those decks where you get it. This is Thoth. This is one of those decks where I could see somebody buying this deck, and then that's it. Like, that's their entire collection. That's the only thing that they need. those types of decks I routinely call like altar decks, in the way of like, that's your entire altar. That's everything you need. That's every tool, tag lock, form of divination. That's everything that you need. I mean, with like, not that you can't collect it, because obviously I do collect decks, but if you're someone who is like, you know what, I want a practice and I don't want to spend $6,000 and I also don't want to make it myself, just like one deck that's bigger than a tarot deck and the book, that's all you need. I mean, at least if this is the practice that you use. Also, missing a card. Remember that? It was out on my altar. Blood Tarot. A tastefully ghoulish celebration of the beauty of blood. So I know Anatorian made a deck that's very similar to this. I don't hate Anatorian. I don't want to sound like I hate Anatorian. Meet me outside, Anna, if you want to. Just kidding, no. I'm not going to fight you. But I personally just like the thickness of this deck, and there is gore, and the approach of it. So I forgot the deck that Anatorian made, but hers was more rainbow, and this is made out of the artist's own blood. And part of the reason why I want to make the archive is, if you do not know your history, people say you're doomed to repeat it, but also just, who are you? I'm quoting someone. Who are you who do not know who you come from? You know? Just a lot of talking from my end, huh? You never say anything back. I'm just kidding. I just like these Rorschach paintings. And I think that some of them, like this one, has like lots of small details into it, same with here. And some of them are more grotesque in the way that they've done. And from my understanding, the creator didn't just make 78 and then that was it. Like, they've actively made, I think, hundreds of these, maybe like over 100, and then picked each one specifically to fit. And also, dare I say, this is one of those decks where if we are anthropomorphizing our decks and our tools, cool, great, wonderful, splendid. This one, you do not mess with, right? I feel like I've gone to this deck and I've used it for also different variations of red. I like that. I've gone to this deck for maybe 4 or 5 readings, and every single time it has been, here's the answer, you're done. Some people call that crone energy, some people call that Baba Yaga energy, and definitely a blood made from an older woman in this format would fit the definition of both of those. But I don't know, I just call it standing on business. I missed out on this Kickstarter, and I'm so happy the artist was selling this later. I don't support Kickstarter anymore. It's not like, oh no, I've been scammed, I don't trust Kickstarter. It's just Kickstarter's choice of supporting AI and blockchain. Like, objectively, you can't be a good person, in my opinion. In my opinion, if you know all of the ways that AI is being used and like blockchain and all that, I'm like, then you're just like, you know, rich billionaire. This is the Oracle Egyptian. I want to get some comment from someone who's like, I actually support AI. And I don't. Sorry. So, back to Egyptian mythology. Such a fun French deck about the Egyptian pantheon. And I think, look at that. That just fits. I think, don't know. I feel like this deck is... it demands its time for you to look at it and sit with it. I've used it for like maybe 2 readings ever, because I do have ADHD and I'm like, let's go. And whoever made the artwork, you really need to take time to appreciate all of the details. And I think this is another deck where like seeing it on YouTube does not do its justice in comparison to seeing it in person or seeing a high quality scan of it in an archive. And decks like this make me even more so want to work on this archive. If it wasn't for the fact that I'm running 1,000 miles per hour in my life trying to accomplish everything. There's something very like folk art-esque about this deck too. And I say folk art-esque because I know that I don't have the vernacular to accurately describe this deck. And I think that's frustrating in its own way. I definitely think something about the opacity of the color and the brightness of it, it's giving new age in the way of the stereotypical mass market new age decks. I actually don't know if this is a mass market or indie deck or not, but I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. I may not be Delta work, but I do.
I look gorgeous, speak extemporaneously.
2 more decks. We're almost done. Sorry for taking your time. This one's going to be quick. If there ever was a warning, nudity warning, horror warning, brutality warning. This is the Oracle of the Erotic Grotesque. So, Io Guru was a movement, and let's see, based on the Japanese movement Io Guru Nansensu, which is erotic grotesque nonsense. This is a minimalist black and white oracle deck of my own design featuring young men in erotic and grotesque scenes. This deck focuses on eroticism, corruption, and decadence and features mature themes. There was a tag going around about like my goth, my punk, my alternative tarot decks, and this was on none of them. And this is another deck that I feel like belongs to be on a episode of Deck Obscuro. I don't know if I cut the edges myself to be around it, but I know I definitely did gild it in black. It's easy for me to gild stuff in black if it fits when I have this entire bucket of black Sharpies. And when it says it's erotic, I think, just looking through it real quick, just to be sure, I think that fits. Because it's not pornographic, but it does show the naked body. I think this is going to sound like I'm talking smack, and I'm not trying to talk smack. So, Cave of Sybil. This is a deck that I think this was like the last video I created before I had to leave making YouTube videos. People were like, oh god, this is such a dark deck. I can feel like the darkness and the shadow work energy from it. And I think that this deck, not to dismiss or to devalue the work of this creator, I'm not saying that, but I think this is a good example of like a deck that has multitudes of power and ways of use in shadow work that isn't just dark and grungy. Because I think people make this like example of dichotomy of lightness and darkness, where they think that happy fun decks are always light and are never using dark grungy colors, and dark and grungy colors are always to do with shadow work. And this is like a visually bright white deck depression, but with such incredibly intense shadow work meanings. Apathy. And the guidebook itself, I think, is very nice. So, is the back not reversible? Absolutely. Could this be expanded upon? Absolutely. I think this deck has so much potential. It's hard to market stuff like this, and I get it. But if I was just pulling a random card, so let's pull this one. Suspension. Oh. Here are the words for it. Freedom at a cost, slow beginning, spirituality, security, serenity, calm, and trust. And then suppressed memories, nostalgia, bittersweet happenings, isolation, calm only on the surface, or wearing a mask. And that's a mess on the artwork that I did. Still love this deck, by the way. I've used it very recently. But that's the Oracle of the Erotic Grotesque. A deck with arguably, and at least in my opinion, a more intense name than the artwork. Also was made from Game Crafter. My box is decimated. And now for the last curious deck of curiosities. Oh my god. My wrist hurt so much with this deck. So, Catamancy Tarot showed this off in one video. It is the illustrated wildlife treasury. And what's interesting is you can buy these online, and it's kind of based on how well the person upkept them and what cards they kept. Because I believe it was a monthly subscription box. I had bought one with a pretty full size of cards, and I had organized it. So let's see. These are birds. These are aquatic life. These are insects and spiders. These are reptiles. Reptiles and... Sure, I saw something else, wasn't it? No, just reptiles and amphibians. These are large mammals, and then these are small mammals. And just to pull a card, Mud Skipper. The way it works is it gives... Where is it? It gives the classification. So this is biogeographical classification. Mud skippers are widespread. They live in the ocean. And zoological classification, they count as a fish. And then it has this name, happy as a fish out of water. So I guess you could call that a keyword or key phrase, and then a section, as well as some more information about it at the bottom. And I think if you are an artist and you want to work on drawing animals, this is also a great tool. But this section right here is where, if you are quiet and you pay attention and you listen, your reading lives. So I can't show off all of this. This deserves to be its own video, in my own opinion. But I think I can show off a little bit of the aquatic, and that'll be the least triggering. Sea cucumber. So it has this... I had all those cards. I had to cut off every single corner on my corner cutter, and that's what hurt my wrist so much. But it has this vintage photography, and the cardstock is not meant to be riffle shuffled. I get that. And on one hand, it sucks that it's not meant to be riffle shuffled, but this is like an 800 card Oracle deck, you know? I like to keep my wrists pleased. I like to keep my wrists working, please. And if you crochet and I crochet, you know your wrist is already struggling as is. So the fact that it's not that thick of a cardstock is actually a boon. It's actually a plus. But you get all these individual different images of different animals. And I like that because I think Tarot decks and Oracle decks recently has unfortunately fallen into a similar market where we are taking the same ideas and we are cannibalizing it and recycling it again and again and again. And everyone's like, well, I keep seeing images from deer, so I feel like deer must be like an animal that I'm connected to personally with some correspondence. And I'm like, it could be, or it could also be that it's the most common denominator animal for North America, and people are using that to their advantage for marketing. I think that the animal world definitely, but the world in general, it's so much more beautiful and vast than we give it its respect and its attention for. And if you're willing to listen to the world, and you are willing to listen to the many ways that the animal kingdom shows up, even if the animal doesn't have anything particularly beautiful or pretty or valuable or insightful in the ways of immediate use, I think you'll find that there is, almost to the point of overwhelm, an abundance of knowledge in the world that is worth listening to, that is worth paying attention to, and that is worth tuning into. I can tell right now we've already overspoken for an hour. So let me actually put this back, and let me do a sample reading based on... Normally I do not put it back this poorly, but I feel kind of rushed, you know? You guys have places to go, things to do. I need to let you guys go. So let's go ahead and shuffle this. Just as an example of... Is it small mammals, or did I organize this as small landlocked or land animals? No. Crash Bandicoot. If I could expand on this deck, I would. With... I know I said I was going to show off this eventually, and I plan on it. I'm just not interested in doing that right now. But this spread, Amoeba, Tryptophanozone, Radiolarian, is studying biology and witchcraft. I've been using this deck for a while now. That that spread is based on these small cards. And I wish I had more of these. I want more of these, and I want dinosaurs too. But I want to start with these. It's like, oh my gosh, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. I sound like the sponge lady. Here's your reading, though. Tasmanian Devil. Look at that. Very boopable nose. A well-deserved name. This animal got its name from its ferocity. It eats all kinds of prey. Small kangaroos, birds, frogs, lizards, poultry, and even sheep. It kills its victims and tears at it with strong jaws and sharp teeth. Yikes. Okay. The Tasmanian Devil is a fierce fighter and will attack animals larger than itself, but never man. It is greedy and will eat carrion as well as fresh meat. Curiously, it thrives in captivity and becomes gentle when tamed. Once widespread in Australia. That's another thing. I want animals that aren't just in North America. Thank you. The nocturnal marsupial is now found only in the inaccessible woods and mountains of Tasmania. It sleeps during the day in the crotch of a tree or the hole in the rocks, coming out at night to hunt. It is a good swimmer and tree climber. Males and females live apart, coming together and mate in April. And at the end of May or June, the female gives birth to 3 or 4 tiny young, about half an inch long. For 15 weeks, she carries them in a completely closed pouch on her belly, each attached to a teat. She then puts them in a nest or grass or straw. They nurse for another 5 months before becoming independent and are adult at the age of 2 years. So, if I were to pull this in a reading, right, I would say this is one and this is one. Just for this card, those are 2 different messages. And immediately the largest message that I could get from this is about your babies, right? So if you're an artist and you have these ideas that you're working with, maybe mixed media artwork, maybe you're working on making your own tarot deck, maybe you just have a concept that you really want to sit with for for enough time to develop its complexity and depth. The message here might be more about letting yourself be in communication with external parties for a limited amount of time, but then letting yourself having the respect of isolation to let these ideas fully mature and graduate. That doesn't mean like physically isolate yourself, but what it does mean is that giving yourself the respect to have these ideas and not try to force them to exist, allowing yourself here. We must have the patience to listen to ourselves carefully and allowing these ideas to slowly and gradually over a period of time come out to maturity in which you would be sharing them. The second one right here, right? I feel like this is saying, you could pull from this that a certain approach of ferocity and of antagonism may be necessary and it may be needed, at least until the time where a situation calms down. So politically, I think a lot of people are feeling this right now, where it's like, I need to fight, I need to protest, I need to lash out until we get captivity and until things become calm and gentle again, And I definitely think there is some merit to that within a reading. How many times do we need to pull the Tower card? How many times do we need to pull the Three of Swords or the Lovers or whatever, This as a very specifically detailed oracle card, 10 out of 10. Fight like your life depends on it until life becomes gentle and calm again. Or you have your ideas, let them sit in gestation for a period of time until they're ready. And each card is like that. Each card is like that. Over 800 cards of specific, detailed, orientated readings. Okay, that's it. Thank you for letting me get on my soapbox. I plan on not isolating so much. I had some bad news, and I will be sharing that in my quarterly review where I go through my goals for this quarter. Because I think I did a planner video where I showed off my goals for this year, showing off my planner. And in that, I'm also going to give you like a good upkeep over everything I've been doing for the past 3 months. But thank you all for coming. Have a great day. Subscribe, like, comment, all that, because I don't want to be famous, but unfortunately I do want to sell my own artwork, and that takes time. So, bye for now.